Welcome to Fully Booked, the bookish podcast where I'll chat about all things book and reading related. Whether you're new or a pro reader, there's something for everyone to learn. I'm here to help you on your reading journey and find that next great read that will keep you fully booked. Hello readers, and welcome to episode 13 of Fully Booked. I'm your host Natalie, and today's episode I'll be going over my Holidaze/Xmas TBR for 2024. Now, as a Canadian, since Thanksgiving occurs in October, it always feels so long in between major holidays, and I don't really celebrate/do much for Halloween as an adult with no kids. Although, fun side note, last year and this year were the first years I've ever been to a costume party in my entire life, which was pretty fun. But anyways, with Christmas coming up in about a month, say what now? What better way to start preparing early for the holiday season than with a themed TBR? Now, I will say, Christmas is my favorite holiday in the whole year, first and foremost because of my faith. But of course, I can't help getting caught up in the most beautiful time of the year. Lights fill the streets, spreading so much cheer. I should be playing in the winter snow, but I'ma be under the mistletoe. And that puts singing on the podcast count to 3, ? Holiday song count equals 1. Okay, hopefully I won't spend most of this episode singing, as that's not what you're here for, and maybe some of you are already sick of hearing Christmas songs/carols. And I admit, they do start playing Christmas songs way too early most years on the radio. Like, even for me, it can be a bit much to handle. So yes, back to Holiday TBR. Unlike the autumn season, where it's easy to get a mix of cute fall romances, cozy mysteries or fantasies, chilling thrillers, and other spooky reads for that time of year, I find it hard to curate a diverse list for Christmas-themed books. Also, I've already read most of the Christmas classics, like Christmas Carol, Little Woman, The Gift of the Magi, etc. So that really only leaves your cheesy Hallmark romances, which there are millions to choose from even still. Although, I did burn out pretty hard last year on the romances, so perhaps I will try to throw in my normal TBR as well during this upcoming month so I don't get sick of them. So, while this list may not be super diverse, I've done my best to pick my top 6 books that I want to read this holiday season, and here they are. Starting with Letters from Father Christmas by J.R.R. Tolkien. Can you imagine writing to Father Christmas and actually getting a reply? For more than 20 years, the children of J.R.R. Tolkien received letters from the North Pole, from Father Christmas himself. They told wonderful stories of mischief and disaster, adventures and battles, how the reindeer got loose and scattered presents all over the place, how the accident-prone polar bear climbed the North Pole and fell through the roof of Father Christmas's house, and many others. So, my understanding is that this book doesn't have an actual plot, but rather is a collection of letters, as the title says. I'm really not sure on more of the details of this book, as I haven't seen anyone in the book community reading or talking about this. It's actually a physical book I've been eyeing on my dad's bookshelf and wanting to pick up for a while. And it's definitely the most unique out of all the holiday books I have and yet to read, as it's more of a novella, for lack of a better word, with fantasy elements and technically aimed towards kids/middle grade, so to speak. I think the reason this one also piques my interest is because when I was younger and still believed in Santa Claus, and by the way, I hope no children are listening right now because I don't want to be the one to crush any little one's dreams. But anyways, my parents would let me write a letter to Santa, mail it, and then one of them would write the reply letter. And I would get a letter from Santa every year and used to look forward to this so much as a kid. I'm not sure what some people are going to think of that, but I personally loved it so much and hope to foster the same sort of spirit of Christmas in this way for my future kids. And if your parents did something similar for you as a kid during Christmas time, I'd love to know, and feel free to DM me your stories/experiences, because yeah, I'd really just love to know what other people experienced during Christmas growing up as a kid. Okay, but anyways, moving on to the second book, A Winter in New York by Josie Silver. A young chef stumbles on a secret family recipe that might lead her to the love and life she's been looking for in this stunning novel. When Iris decides to move to New York to restart her life, She realizes she underestimated how big the Big Apple really is. All the nostalgic movies set in New York she'd watched with her mom while eating their special secret recipe gelato didn't quite do it justice. But Bobby, Iris' best friend, isn't about to let her hide away. He drags her to a famous autumn street fair in Little Italy, and as they walk through the food stalls, a little family-run gelateria, I hope I said that right by the way, catches her eye. Could it be the same shop that's in an old photo of her mother's? Curious, Iris returns the next day and meets the handsome Gio, who tells her that the shop is in danger of closing. His uncle, sole keeper of their family's gelato recipe, is in a coma, so they can't make more. When Iris samples the last remaining batch, she realizes that their gelato and her gelato are one and the same. But how can she tell them she knows their secret recipe when she's not sure why Gio's uncle gave it to her mother in the first place? Iris offers her services as a chef to help them recreate the flavor and finds herself falling for Gio and his family. But when Gio's uncle finally wakes up, all the secrets Iris has been keeping threaten to ruin the new life and new love she's been building all winter long. Now, I had wanted to read this last year as I saw it pop up in some booktubers' videos. However, like I said in my intro, I got pretty burnt out on holiday romances, so I just never ended up getting around to this one. I have previously read One Day in December and The Two Lives of Lydia Bird by Josie Silver, and really enjoyed the former book. It actually kind of reminded me of the movie Love, Rosie, if any of you have seen that, with like that continual theme of right person, always the wrong time, but a touch Christmassy. Although the book is set over the course of many years, so it's not completely holiday themed. And of course, I love New York as the backdrop location of any seasonally themed book, especially fall and the holidays, and the fact that our FMC is a chef. Now, I personally love books that mention food and find it can be used as a useful literary device / metaphor, especially in romance books. Although I've heard some people find books that mention food boring if it gets too descriptive. And maybe it's because I enjoy eating and cooking enough that I personally don't mind reading about it. There is only one qualm that I hardly have with this book, as according to what I heard from BookTube, there is a trope in this book that I am usually not a fan of. And seeing as this is a romance book, and if you've listened to my earlier episodes, you could probably take a guess as to what trope it is. I don't really want to say it here so as not to completely ruin this book for others, and also trying to keep an open mind myself. But overall, I am a fan of Josie Silver's writing style, character, and relationship development in her books, so I'm hoping that this one is at least a 4-star read, and I'm not disappointed. Okay, moving on to the next book, In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren. It's the most wonderful time of the year, but not for Maylin Jones. She's living with her parents, hates her going nowhere job, and has just made a romantic error of epic proportions. But perhaps worst of all, this is the last Christmas May will be at her favorite place in the world, the snowy Utah cabin where she and her family have spent every holiday since she was born, along with 2 other beloved families. Mentally melting down as she drives away from the cabin for the final time, May throws out what she thinks is a simple plea to the universe. Please, show me what will make me happy. The next thing she knows, tires screech and metal collides, everything goes black. But when May gasps awake, she's on an airplane bound for Utah, where she begins the same holiday all over again. With one hilarious disaster after another sending her back to the plane, May must figure out how to break free of the strange time loop and finally get her true love under the mistletoe. Jam-packed with Yuletide cheer, an unforgettable cast of characters, and Christina Lauren's trademark hijinks, this swoon-worthy romantic read will make you believe in the power of wishes and the magic of the holidays. Of course, we have the classic Groundhog Day trope with this book, although I will say, I actually haven't come across that many books with this trope. And I think the only one I've personally read so far is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. TBH, I feel like the reason why this trope isn't that popular is because it's just hard to create a really exciting and inventive plot with this one, since you basically have to relive the same day over and over with the characters until they find a solution. I also find that the solution itself to escaping the time loop usually isn't that inventive in and of itself. Actually, I find that any books that utilize a time travel element of some sort, it can be really difficult to actually explain, if the author even attempts to, which usually doesn't happen in romance novels, and it's just also hard to execute well. And I mean, I'm no expert on the laws of time travel or if there are even any, but just saying. But I feel like seasonal romance books with the Groundhog Day trope definitely seem more appealing, as, for example, The Do-Over by Lynn Painter is set on Valentine's Day. And in general, I especially love a good Christmas book or movie with some antics and hijinks thrown in there. Just makes it more interesting. So I am more hopeful for this book and that it will deliver on the overall and Christmas-themed elements. Hey readers, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. And hear me out before you hit skip. I'm so grateful for all my listeners who are with me on this reading journey, and I'd like to ask that if you haven't yet, please leave a rating and review as it helps others find the podcast. Also, please consider supporting the podcast financially as it helps me bring you more exciting content, and you'll get some extras like bonus and subscriber-only episodes, early access to new episodes, and much more. The link to donate will be in the show notes below, or you can go to buymeacoffee.com/fullybookedpod. Thank you so much again for choosing to listen to Fully Booked, and now back to the episode. Alright, next up we have Always in December by Emily Stone. Every December, Josie posts a letter from her home in London to the parents she lost on Christmas night many years ago. Each year, she writes the same 3 words, missing you always. But this year, her annual trip to the post box is knocked off course by a bicycle collision with a handsome stranger, a stranger who will change the course of Josie's life. Josie always thought she was the only one who avoided the Christmas season, but this year, Max has his own reasons for doing the same, and coincidence leads them to spending the holiday together. Aglow with new love, Josie thinks this might be the start of something special, only for Max to disappear without saying goodbye. Over the course of the next year, Max and Josie will find that fate continues to bring them together in places they never expect. New York City, Edinburgh, the quiet English countryside. And it turns out, Max had every reason to leave and every reason to stay. But what does fate hold for Josie and Max as Christmas approaches again? So this is actually one that I have saved on my Kindle from last year, and I've heard about Emily Stone's Christmas books from other booktubers. While this is another Christmas romance, her books tend to have a bit of a sadder tone, and usually the characters are dealing with something like grief/loss. So I thought this would be good to throw in to have something different from the super cheesy Hallmark romances that I gravitated towards last year. And I'm hoping that the writing is actually good in this one, as she has a lot of backlist titles that I can read through if I end up enjoying this one. And for some weird reason, reading it through, the premise of this one kind of reminds me of that movie that came out a few years ago, Last Christmas, with Emilia Clarke and Henry Golding. It's not exactly the same, but both have that fated to meet trope, and I'm getting the sense already that there's going to be some hidden connection between the two mains in this one, like there was in the movie Last Christmas. So I guess I really will have to read this and see if I'm right or not. Okay, next up we have The Greatest Gift by Philip Van Doren Stern. For almost 70 years, people over the world have fallen in love with Frank Capra's classic Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. But few of those fans know that Capra's film was based on a short story by author Philip Van Doren Stern, which came to Stern in a dream one night. Unable at first to find a publisher for his evocative tale about a man named George Pratt who ponders suicide until he receives an opportunity to see what the world would be like without him. Stern ultimately published the story in a small pamphlet and sent it out as his 1943 Christmas card. One of those 200 cards found its way into the hands of Frank Capra, who shared it with Jimmy Stewart, and the film that resulted became the holiday tradition we cherish today. Honestly, I pretty much put this one in my TBR to have a classic to read this holiday season, and I wasn't actually aware that this movie was based on a book. I realize now, reading it, that the summary doesn't actually say much what the book is about, but I'm sure most of you listening have seen or heard of It's a Wonderful Life in some way. And I don't have much more to say about this book, except that while I know It's a Wonderful Life is a beloved Christmas movie for so many, it isn't really that high up on the list for me. My parents and I just always had our own set of movies that we love to watch during Christmas time, and this is one we only watched once together as a family when I was much younger, and I never felt the need to go back and rewatch it. So, in a way, I am a bit curious to see how well the story is written and plays out in the book, and I'm assuming since since it's a short story, there might be events and things that had to be omitted/adapted for the movie. So perhaps a rewatch will be required if I end up enjoying the book that much, so I can do a little comparison afterwards. And finally, for my last book on my TBR, we have Winter in Paradise by Ellen Hilderbrand. Welcome to Paradise, the first book in the Paradise series. Has everything that readers have come to know and love about an Ellen Hilderbrand novel, plus a healthy dose of intrigue. Irene Steele's idyllic life husband, family is shattered when she is woken up by a late-night phone call. Her beloved husband has been found dead, but before Irene can process this tragic news, she must confront the perplexing details of her husband's death. He was found on St. John's Island, a tropical paradise far removed from their suburban life. Leaving the cold winter behind, Irene flies down to the beautiful Caribbean beaches of St. John, only to make another shocking discovery. Her husband had a secret second family. As Irene investigates the mysterious circumstances of her husband's death, she is plunged into a web of intrigue and deceit. Sorry guys, I'm not sure how to say that, by the pristine white sand beaches of St. John's. I'm gonna be honest here, guys. I really had trouble picking this last book to put on my holiday TBR, as like I said, it's hard to find holiday-themed books that aren't primarily romance and that I haven't already read. And I only started hearing later this year about some cozy Christmas mysteries and wasn't aware of this themed subgenre when I made my TBR. And this one is actually not holiday themed at all, looking at the summary, but I find that I like to throw in something completely different in my holiday/winter reading so that, again, I don't get totally burnt out or bored. And what better way to get something different than a beach read during the holidays? Now, of course, Miss sorry guys, I'm so sorry. I really forget how to say her first name. I forget if it's Elin or Ellen, so please excuse me. I guess I'll have to check maybe later how to say it. Anyways, Miss Elin Hilderbrand has been on my TBR for quite a while, and I've heard so much about her from the rest of the online book community. I'm curious to read her as well, as her books seem a bit more geared towards an older audience, where her characters are usually older in age, in different life stages, and going through things like marriage, divorce, challenging family dynamics, etc. And her books also tend to have a mystery element, which makes things even more interesting. So I can't wait to finally give one of her books a try, and I'll definitely have much more to read if I enjoy her as an author, as her backlist is capital H huge. And one more quick note before I wrap up. Some of you might be wondering if I ever read all the books on my autumn TBR and what my ratings were. In order to put out as much different types of content for my main episodes, I will be posting TBR follow-up episodes on my Buy Me a Coffee page. So if you're interested in listening to those follow-ups as well as other bonus episodes, be sure to check out the link in the show notes and support the podcast to get access, as I'll continue to post extra content there. Otherwise, that wraps up my holiday TBR for 2024. Hope you all enjoyed this and that this episode encouraged you to get in the holiday spirit. And also, start doing your holiday shopping if you haven't already. Plus, it's really the perfect time with Black Friday sales starting or coming up in the next week or so don't wait too long like I have some years. Anyways, with all that, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you back here for episode 14. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope you were able to take away something, and be sure to follow the podcast for more bookish content. Until next time, stay fully booked, and I'll talk to you soon.